Come on up, Amalia. This is Amalia de Aslan, second to none. She joins the ranks of folks like Leticia de Lara, Barbara Keller, Conchita Posad, who have been Women of the Year for the 4th District these last few years since I've been a supervisor. And I think I've known Amalia now, I want to say at least 30 years. Just graduating from University of California, Riverside, going back home, and having the pleasure of meeting her, as she has always been fighting for social justice in our communities, specifically on behalf of farm workers. She's joined here today by her 2 beautiful daughters, Tonantzin, Tony for short, Citlali, Lali for short, and they've been by her side, obviously, all their lives. She's got a son by name of Tisok, who's not here today because I think he's working at the tennis garden back home. But Tisok has also been in my corner, just like his mother, going back to my first campaign, going back to when I first ran for school board, then eventually for the state assembly, eventually for city council, and now here as a board supervisor. Now, there's a lot I like to think that we have in common. One thing that I learned from Amalia, I don't know, maybe 10 years ago, we were talking, and I told her where I grew up, and that's in Avenue 53, Cochelita, Calle Avila. And we started talking about it, and I gave her the address. And then she said, wait a minute, I used to live there too. And that is where, for example, not only did she live there with her family, but that's where Cesar Chavez would spend the night when he would go out there and organize in the city of Coachella. And in the unincorporated areas of Thermal, Mecca, Oasis, those areas there. So for me, that meant a lot, knowing that we have that history. Almost unbelievable. And here we are in the future now, fast forward. She's still organizing, and I try to organize in my own way as a policymaker. I'd like to read a few of these whereases. Whereas a resident of Bermuda Dunes, Amalia de Aslan has fought for civil rights throughout her life. As a labor organizer, community organizer, coalition builder, an advisor, a spokesperson, and a leader for women, but a leader for all individuals, including myself, a mentor for me as well. As a child, Amalia came with her family when they crossed into the U.S. and searched for a better life, settling in Thermal first. And unfortunately, she couldn't continue with school. So she went out to the fields and started working at the age of 10 years of age. Obviously, being out there, she experienced firsthand the injustices of brutal long hours, back-breaking labor, seeing women bringing their children to the field because they lacked daycare, exposure to pesticides, the lack of bathrooms and water. And I remember my mother talking to me about this as well, because my mother was also a farm worker for over 25 years. These experiences led Amalia into community organizing, and she became one of the main plaintiffs on behalf of Cesar Chavez, Dolores Huerta, and the United Farm Workers in the Uribe case, a lawsuit addressing the use of pesticides in the fields, an early foundation of her longtime work fighting for migrant field workers and their families. Her involvement is a long list. I'll name a few. She's the founder and leader of the Coachella Mexican American Chamber of Commerce and the Riverside County District Attorney Crime Prevention Foundation. Service on the boards of the American Diabetes Association, Desert Chapter, the Migrant National Health Task Force, and the Martin Luther King Jr. Commemoration Committee of the Desert, where she has served for over 36 years. This list goes on and on, but ultimately, for me, Amalia, in her own way, in her own right, is a superhero. And I really appreciate what you've done for me, my family, for our community, Amalia, and for those that are not even born yet. For those that maybe one day will read about you because of what you've been able to do. Now, therefore, let it be resolved that the Riverside County Board of Supervisors on the 7th day of March 2023, in honor of International Women's Day and Women's History Month, does hereby honor Amalia Deslan as Woman of the Year in recognition and appreciation of all she has done to help the community and as a true inspiration to all. And just one last plug, I want to thank Suzanne Wilkinson for nominating you. Where is Suzanne? Well, thank you for nominating Amalia. This is Amalia. Let's say a few words.
I just want to thank the Board of Supervisors, especially our supervisor, Manuel Perez, who has been tremendously good for our community. Like he mentioned before, it's very difficult to have someone that cares so much for the poor, for our farm workers. I became the first president of the striking committee in Coachella because I was 17. I did not have the opportunity to go to proms or football games, but I met wonderful leaders. And Rosa Parks, I met Ralph Abernathy. I worked with Dolores Huerta, Cesar Chavez, and a lot of the people that inspire me to continue the work that was necessary in our communities. And also my love of our community, my love for justice, equality, democracy, all those things keep me going. And at times, because I'm 72, that I think about retiring, then I see things that need to be done, and they have to be done. And we just do it. We just jump in and do it. But I thank you for this honor, and I thank my family for my daughters out there, and Susan Wilkinson for nominating me because she's a great friend. Thank you all.